Okay, this one's for the leaders that think that long hours means commitment, or you are the kind of leader that says, I'll rest when this project is done, or I'll rest when this busy period is over. If that sounds like you, this is the one that you need to watch, because rest is not a reward for hitting your targets. It's fundamental to high performance. When you stop protecting your rest and your downtime, your performance drops. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and I work with leaders to help them to be more efficient, more effective, and build self-sufficient teams that are confident and resilient. I help leaders to be better leaders with better balance so that they can go home on time and take a week off, zero work, zero stress, zero guilt, because they know that their team have got everything handled in their absence. So let's talk about rest and why rest is so important for high performance. Now, I know that some people call this the performance paradox. The more you work, the less effective you actually become. So let's talk about this. So what's the problem? The problem is that your brain needs recovery time to be able to think strategically. Your decision making is a lot worse when you are running on empty and you start reacting instead of thinking ahead. So your strategic work ends up getting pushed into the end of the day, maybe into the evenings after you were supposed to have gone home. And when you cut rest, you cut the thing that makes you effective, that makes you work efficiently. We know that leaders that work 12-hour days are the highest risk of making poor decisions. A leader working 8 hours with protected recovery, time out in the evenings, a good night's sleep, better decisions, and better impact too. They could be in the same role. It's a different approach, which brings different results. And I can talk about this from my own experience. I was in a senior leadership position, busy role, lots of responsibility. I was also a single parent. And at one point, I was also an international athlete and trying to create a business at the same time. Now, you don't get to do all of that unless you protect your time and your energy and the things that are most important. I didn't have more hours than anybody else. I just needed to protect the hours that I had and make sure that I was rested and had enough sleep, as well as the food and recovery time to be able to have the energy to show up and do the things that I wanted to do. And not just show up and do them, but to show up and do them well. When we're in reactive mode, we are likely to be in that place in our brain that deals with things with that fight, flight, and freeze response. For those of you that have read The Chimp Paradox, you will be familiar with the monkey mind and our fight, flight, and freeze response. Now, we know that our fight, flight, and freeze response is fed through the information that is in our brain. It's fed through from emotions, but also all of our stored memories, whether we can remember them or not. Now, the part of our brain that helps us to rationalize, helps us to take that step back and look at the bigger picture, look at the different perspectives, that needs us to be rested, because that, firstly, is always the slower component of our brain, but it is even slower when we are tired. When we are not rested, when we are stressed, when we are hormonal, and when we are hungry. So we need to make sure that we are looking after ourselves so that part of our brain can fire on all cylinders, because it is already running behind and slower than the faster paced parts of our brain that feed into what makes us react. And we want to be able to respond rather than react. And rest is a critical part of that. Being able to rest and being able to regulate our nervous system is what helps us to move from reaction to response. And you'll know that I talk about the difference between reactive leadership and intentional leadership. It's the same thing. So what happens without rest? Burnout creeps in before you notice. Now, a lot of people talk about burnout being depletion of energy. And rest is a big part of that. Now, we know that with burnout, there are lots of different factors that can influence what causes burnout, and it will be a mismatch. Now, that mismatch might be time, energy, and resources, so not enough time, not enough energy for the things that need to be done. It can also be a mismatch of energy and reward, or it can be a mismatch of our values when our values are out of alignment. Now, whilst rest will only direct one of those mismatches, when we rest, we think more clearly. We're able to take that step back, look at the bigger picture, look at the different perspectives, and look at what's really going on. When we react, which is often what happens when we're not rested, we try and tackle things on that surface level rather than having time to think about things and get to the root cause of what is causing the problem. The challenges in leadership is that if we are not resting, we are teaching our team to do the same. So we are likely to be influencing a culture that works long hours, that keeps pushing rather than knowing when to take that step back. We also, because we're reacting rather than working with intention, we work on the things that don't matter. So not only are we draining our energy, we're draining our energy on things that aren't even important, or they're important, but they are not our priority. And this is what we know happens for leaders who end up trying to do the strategic work at the end of the day or after everybody else has gone home, because they've been dealing with everything else. They've been reacting rather than making intentional decisions and working with purpose. Not only now are they knackered, they've done all of the things that actually didn't need to be done today. And the thing that did need to be done today is now being rushed through at the 11th hour when they are tired, when they are fatigued, and when they have run out of decision brain power. So not only are they working more slowly and less clearly, they're present but not present. Physically there, mentally elsewhere. And our people need us to be present. They need us to be there and in the room and have that level of energy that is needed to keep everything going. We need to lead from the front. We cannot be the one that is falling behind at the back. The challenge is a lot of these people will describe themselves as high performers. It's not sustainable. So it's high performers that will peak early and burn out fast. And the challenge then is when they're in a leadership position, they are creating a team of people who behave in the same way. As leaders, we are modeling what success looks like. And if this is our version of success, this is what we are modeling, this is what we are creating, and it is exhausting for everyone. This is probably one of the most common things that we talk about, especially on the Elevate Your Efficiency program, because people join that program because their days are full, they're overwhelmed, they're working late, they're working weekends, or they're busy and not being able to prioritize their time for the strategic work, the long-term projects, and the work that is they want to do. I hear people saying that they're just in this cycle of back-to-back meetings, relentless crises coming in from everybody else. And it's that fast pace. It's reacting to everything that is going on. Now, if that's what your week looks like, the chances are your team are going to have a week that looks like that too. If you've got time in your week that is protected for the priority tasks, your team will mirror those practices as well. If you're questioning whether or not meetings need to happen, then your team will have the confidence to ask the same questions. And if you are going home on time and not working into the evenings, not working into weekends, then your team will see that that is the way things are done around here, and they will mirror that too. You may think you're gaining a couple of hours by working that little bit faster, working that little bit longer. The question is what you're really gaining here versus what you're losing. And if you're losing effectiveness because you're then making bad decisions or poor decisions, or you are losing energy really quickly, or you're losing focus, then your team are going to question what you're doing, and they're going to question whether or not you actually know how to lead and whether it's sustainable. But it's also the unwritten messaging that it sends to them too about what is expected. And that is definitely something that you need to keep an eye on. I want you to challenge yourself to see rest as a performance strategy rather than a reward. Rest is something that needs to be protected because it makes you perform. leaders who work really well, and especially leaders who work under pressure, they take time off. They know when to slow down so that they can come back with the energy that is needed to deal with what is going on. They'll also come back with better ideas. They come back with clearer priorities, and they're able to make stronger decisions because they're able to think clearly. They're able to use all of the parts of their brain that will help them analyze the information that they have and make a good decision with the information that they have in that moment. This isn't just about the short-term time off. Leaders who are able to prioritize their rest, who are able to build this in as part of their performance strategy, are also the ones who are able to log off for a week, go off on their holiday, and not feel the need to have to log on to check what is going on back in the business, because those smaller periods of rest have built that trust, and for the teams, secured that autonomy, secured the confidence that is needed, secured the resilience that is needed, so they are able to work in that person's absence. One of the frameworks that I share with the leaders that I work with is the 4P reset. Now, I put this together a couple of years ago based on my experiences within the police and also what I was seeing with the leaders that I was working with. Now, I worked in the control room, the department that takes the emergency and non-emergency calls. Now, a lot of the time, the information that comes through needs quick decisions. It needs the individual on the calls to be able to assess the information that is coming in, ask the questions to gather the information that is needed, and then make a decision. More information comes in, different decisions are made. And as one of the team leaders in that center, my role was to support the staff that were on the floor making those decisions. Now, there's two things here that apply to this topic. Firstly, even with the emergency calls, we slow down. We take a breath, we slow down how we are talking, and we ask the questions to help get the information that we need. The person on the end of the phone is in a high emotional state. What they need from the person on the phone is calm. They need that person to be clear in the questions that they are asking. The call taker would always take a breath and then ask clear, direct questions so that the person on the end of the phone had to answer with short, sharp answers. This helps them to slow down their thinking and start to regulate that emotional state. So the call taker would always take that moment, just take that pause to prioritize what is important in this moment. What does this person need from me? They need me to be calm. They need me to be clear. They don't need me to step into that emotional state they are in. That is not going to be helpful. They need me to take a moment and do what I am here to do. So we pause, we prioritize, and then we proceed with purpose. And that is the 4 Ps. The second way that this applies to this topic is making sure that people took a break. Most of the call takers in that department worked 10-hour shifts. That is a lot of calls, back to back to back. And there were always calls in the queue. Recognizing when somebody needed to step away from their desk to take a moment, to take a breather, was really important. Not just their scheduled lunch break and screen breaks, but actually recognizing when somebody has taken a difficult call and needs to step away for a moment. That was really important. That's where the timeout is strategic, because when they come back, they are able to sit back in that chair and be effective again. They cannot be effective if they stay in the chair and don't take that moment to be able to debrief the call they've just had, take a moment, take a breath, and come back in. They need that time to regulate their nervous system. Otherwise, they then take that into the next call. So strategic rest is incredibly important. Second framework that I teach my clients is the performance flow framework. Think of it like a motorway 3-lane system. Now, a lot of leaders are in the fast lane. They're reactive. Everything is urgent. They hit the motorway, foot is on the floor, and off they go. Great leader plans for the slow lane, knows when the middle lane is important, and knows that the fast lane is there for when it is needed. If we plan for the slow lane, we know we have plenty of contingency to get to where we need to go when we need to get there. If we plan to do the whole journey in the fast lane, there is no contingency. There is no contingency for time. There is no contingency for our attention span or for us being able to come off at the service station and take a break. If we are in the slow lane, we are able to take strategic rest. There is contingency and a buffer because we know that we can get there at the slowest pace possible. Now, the chances are we'll be hitting that middle lane, that sustainable pace to keep the momentum going and to keep that smooth journey as we cross in and out of those two lanes. A good leader will be working between the first and second lanes. Now, there's always that chance where we get the third lane, we can make up a little bit of distance, give it a little burst of energy, and then move back in. When I share this analogy with the leaders that I work with, there's always an interesting discussion of where people see themselves at the moment. I think one of the best responses was somebody that said, I'm in the fast lane and nobody's letting me back into the middle lane. And this is what happens. If you are always working in the fast lane, people see you as working in the fast lane. People expect you to be in the fast lane, and the work will come your way at that pace and at that pressure. When you then try to slow down, nobody wants you in the middle lane because they have got very familiar and very comfortable with you being able to work at that pace. It is not sustainable for you. Their expectations need to be managed. Now, if we are in the slow lane and we are planning for the slow lane with the contingency, and we then hit the middle lane or the fast lane, then we're winning. We are going above and beyond those expectations. It's very hard to keep those expectations if people think that we are always going to be in the fast lane. Think about what lane you are in. Plan a slow lane before your high pressure period. So there's a strong possibility that you can look into the calendar and you can see that there is a high pressure period coming up where you and your team need to be in that fast lane. It's for a shorter period of time, but it needs to happen. Every organization, every team has those peak periods. Make sure that your team are in the slow lane before. Give yourself that breathing space, take the time to plan, take the time to prepare, take the time to think about how you're going to approach it. Then you can hit the fast lane and then you can move back into the slow lane afterwards. When you are strategic with your rest, you do not need to recover. You don't burn out in the fast lane and then need to go and take that time out for a lot longer in the service station because you've overdone it, because people have ended up ill where they haven't had enough sleep, they haven't looked after themselves, and now they're completely burned out and need that recovery rather than strategic rest. Slow down, speed up. Slow down, speed up. Now, this is for the longer periods of time. You can use the same approach with mini slowdowns. 15 minutes before a big meeting. Create that buffer time. Take a breath, get your head in the right place, look through the minutes from the last meeting, check through the agenda, think about what's going to be asked of you. Take that moment before. Take that strategic rest before a big meeting to get yourself in the right place. 10 minutes before a one-to-one. Think about the individual that's coming in to talk to you. Think about what it is that they need. What questions do you want to ask? What information do you want to share? How do you want that conversation to go? Think strategically, prevent poor performance. This is the power of the pause. Taking those small moments of rest and slowing down before you go in. Before you go into meetings, before you go into one-to-ones, before you go into presentations. The power of the pause helps with the planning and it helps prevent poor performance. There's a lot of P's in there. But it also helps you to think clearly so that you are showing up as your best self in those moments. Way too many people will say, I'll just slow down when that's done. I'll stop when this bit is done, or I've got a holiday coming up in 3 weeks, so I just need to keep going until that holiday. That's why you end up getting ill when you're on holiday, because your body slows down and everything that your body has been holding off starts to come through. Strategic rest, high performance. It's why, as a strong woman, and anybody else who does weight training, has a rest and deload week before a competition. We allow our bodies to rest. We allow ourselves to fuel up so that on competition day, we are at our strongest. It's why different athletes will have their own approaches a week before a competition or 24 hours before a game. They'll slow down. They'll have a process that they know works for them. And then they follow that process to make sure that they have that peak performance state when it matters. Leadership is the same. We need to be thinking about approaching our leadership in exactly the same way. What do we need? What do our team need for that high performance and sustainable high performance? What do we need to do to be able to show up at our best? And where do we need to rest so we don't need to recover? Here's a couple of suggestions to start you off. Think about one place where you can protect some time. If you are looking at your calendar and thinking there's not much gap in there for me to be able to work with, then look at one thing that you can stop doing, or half. Maybe a meeting that's currently 60 minutes that doesn't need to be a full hour, or maybe something that you're doing that doesn't have direct impact. Identify a spot of time for you to protect your strategic work, whatever that looks like. Start protecting that time. Mark it in your calendar as protected time. If you're working every evening at the moment, start to look where you can reduce the time that you are finishing each day. Plan things in on an evening, which means you have to leave at a certain time. You have to go home because you have another commitment in the calendar. Reduce the amount of time that you are logging on outside of your contracted hours. One of the things that I know works really well, because clients have told me that it's worked really well for them, is making a decision 1 hour before you are due to log off and go home. You want to make sure that when you log off and go home, firstly, you are not logging back on when you get home. Just because you have the technology doesn't mean you have to use it. So we want to make sure you're not logging back on, but also when you do go home, that you are mentally present. Just because you've walked in through the door doesn't mean that you are mentally there. So we want to make sure that you are mentally present. So 1 hour before you are due to go home, make a conscious decision. I've got 60 minutes left. How am I going to spend that 60 minutes? What absolutely has to be done today and what can wait till tomorrow? Start to show up with purpose. Start to lead with intention. Rather than just going with what comes your way, make a decision first thing in the morning. This is what needs to be done today. This is what I need to show up to. This is what needs my energy and focus. This is what needs my attention. This is what needs to get done off of the actions list. Too many people do not feel in control of their calendar. So if that's you, look at where you can start to take control of your calendar, whether that's small buffer times around your meetings, whether that's making a decision an hour before you go home. Think about how you can take control over your time and over your energy. Think about where strategic rest needs to be built into your structure of your working week. And if you find it difficult to do it for you, let's start off with doing it for your team. You need to model sustainable ways of working. Your team need to see you show up and work in a way that will get the best out of them as well. Give them permission to slow down when it's needed, to speed up when it's needed, but to rest as well. Show them what needs to be done for high performance. So if you're struggling to do it for yourself right now, it feels a little bit selfish, it doesn't feel like a way that you want to work, then do it for your team. Start with doing it for your team. Start to do it so that they can model what good looks like. You want to be a good leader, but you also want to be a good leader for a long period of time. Better leader, better balance. That is the key. There are lots of tips in there. So even if you're not the person that is running on empty, or you're telling yourself that you'll rest when things slow down, then there are lots of things in this video that you can put into action that will make a big difference. I would love to know which ones out of that you pull out and which ones you take action with. I would love for you to let me know. Ultimately, these are all tips that will help you to be more effective, be more efficient, and at the same time, create that self-sufficient team, which helps you to be a better leader with the better balance and helps you to be an intentional leader, which is what it's all about. This will also be written up as a blog. So if you want to check that out, head over to the website. There are different ways to work with me: one-to-one coaching, the Elevate Your Efficiency Blueprint program, and also the leadership community. So if you want to step in and do more, then have a look at the website. All of the ways to work with me are there. And if you want to book in a call to see what that might look like, the link is on the website as well. And final point is that if you want to know where your time is going and look at where you might be able to shift where your time and energy is going to be able to create spaces for that strategic rest, then head to the website for the AAA timeframe download, which is the free download on the website. It will help you to get a really good picture of where your time is going and help you to create the picture of where you want your time to go. I will leave that with you, and I will be back with another video very soon.